Hey kids, welcome to Unit 1, Lesson 3, Classes and Objects, exercise number 2. This is a very important lesson. This is an investigate and modify, and the bulk of this lesson deals with the Painter activity guide. Let's go ahead and jump over to the guide and see what we have to do. So in this activity guide, we're going to be investigating the Painter class. This painter class represents a painter in the neighborhood. And throughout this year, we're going to use this painter class to explore all kind of parts of Java and object-oriented programming while solving these problems and painting these really beautiful murals. From level 2, we're going to use the documentation tab in the instructions panel, and we're going to answer some of the questions here. Let's take a look at our first question. From the drop-down, choose org.code.neighborhood painter to access the documentation for the painter class. What are the 3 sections, the teal headings, that the documentation consists of? Let's go ahead and find that. Head back over here. From our exercise 2, we're going to go to documentation. We're going to go to the drop-down, and we want to find org.code.neighborhood painter, which is this one. Now we want to see the 3 teal headings. So fields is in teal, that's one of them. Methods is another one. And look at all those methods. And method details seems to be our third. And there's a whole lot of information here. We're going to look through this in a bit. So it looks like what we have here is something called fields, which looks like it gives you the location, direction, the methods, which is what we can do, it looks like, move, turn left, paint, take paint, scrape paint, can move, which direction it's facing, and then the method details. This looks like this explains what all those things up there are. So turn left, this looks like it gives the details to the turn left. Looks like we really have 2 sections, fields and methods, and the methods is further detailed by the method details section. This is going to be very helpful because this lets us know what our painter can and cannot do. Let's go back here. Let's go fields, methods, and method details. Let's look at our next one here. Look at the field section. What fields does the painter class have? And I think we briefly just talked about this. Let's go back and look though. And this is going to be all the way at the top. It has X location, Y location, direction, and remaining paint. That means X location, Y location, direction, remaining paint. What does the X location and Y location fields represent? Well, if we go back here, the X location is the X coordinates of the painter object, and the Y coordinates are the Y coordinates of the painter object. And that means we're using our good old friend, the Cartesian coordinate system, with Y on one axis and X on another axis. We have a grid system to locate where our painter's at, and this just gives us that location. Let's go back. This is going to give us the X and Y position of the painter. What does the direction field represent? Let's go look at the documentation again. And the direction is the direction the painter object is facing. That's north, south, east, or west. So direction will tell me which way in the compass it's pointing. So that is the direction the painter is facing. And that can be, I spelled that right though. And that can be north, south, east, or west. What does the remaining paint field represent? Let's go look at the documentation. Remaining paint, that tells me how much paint is left in the bucket, how much more I can paint. Let's go ahead and head back and write that up. The amount of paint the painter has. Look at some of the methods listed under the Methods heading. List 3 methods in the Painter class. Let's go ahead and take a look at 3. So these are my methods. Let's look at the first 3 right here. We have move. This is going to move the object 1 space forward in the direction it's facing. Turn left is going to turn our object to the left. And then it looks paint. And then it looks like paint is going to paint the space the object is standing on. And that's important. It's not the forward one, it's the one it is currently on. Let's go ahead and add this to our sheet. The first one is move. Second one was turn left. And the final one was paint. I want you to notice that my M was capitalized, and technically this is wrong. Move, the method, is lowercase, and if we write it with an uppercase, we're going to get a syntax error. Remember from our previous lesson, it has to be spelled exactly like the method we're calling. What do these methods do? Move moves the painter 1 space. Turn left turns the painter left. And paint paints the spot the painter is on. Again, we want to be correct here. We're going to go lowercase m, and same with paint. Paint has to be a lowercase p. Let's look at our next question here. What do you notice that the painter cannot do? Well, let's head back here. And what I want you to notice when we're talking about our first couple here, we can move forward. We can turn left. Can we turn another direction? Doesn't look like we can. So I think right now the one thing our painter cannot do is turn right. Let's go ahead and write that down. The painter cannot turn right. And that's the end of our sheet. Key takeaway from this lesson is understanding this documentation. And there's actually one part I did not talk about in the lesson that I would like to talk about right now. When we're talking about our class, there's 2 different classifications we give to our different types of things the painter can do. Our field sections, those are attributes. Sometimes it's also helpful to refer to them as nouns. As you can see, it's getting you your location, it's seeing what direction you're in, seeing the remaining paint. These are all attributes of the class. The method, or the method details here, are going to be your behaviors. What can it do? Or your verbs. It can paint, it can turn left, it can move, it can paint a square. So when we're talking about our different things we can do with our classes, I want you to think about those 2 things, the attributes and the behaviors, because those are going to come up quite a bit as we move forward. Whenever we get a new class in Java, and we're going to get quite a few as we move through this class, I really want you to get in the habit of looking at this documentation. There's also a shortcut to get to this documentation. If we go back to our instructions here, you'll see right next to where we did our drop down, there's this little button here. And if we click that, that'll open up this documentation in a nice big window, much easier to read here. Everything's still the same. And you can see from over here, we're going to get a couple other classes we're going to learn about. So get used to looking through the documentation, because this really tells you the things you can and can't do. And this mimics exactly what you would find in the Java handbook. There are things that Java can and cannot do, and those are all covered in the text. And this is the text for our class. So please take a look at it, because when we get to the end of the lesson, especially when you have to create your own art, you're going to have to look through all of these different methods and find one that works for your abstract art project. Hopefully, this video helps you understand the painter class a little better. As always, if you have any questions, come see me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next video. See you later, kids. Bye. Bye. Bye.